The war on drugs has been an utter failure.
The war on drugs in America is an epic failure. Decades of drug prohibition, just like alcohol prohibition before, have done more harm than good, fueling mass incarceration, organized crime, infectious diseases, and bloodshed across the world, while failing to reduce either supply or demand. Since 1971, it's estimated that $1.5 trillion have been spent on interdiction, enforcement, and sentencing, mandatory sentencing. The drug epidemic in America is worse than ever before. Nevertheless, in 2016, Attorney General Jeff Sessions has redeclared the war on drugs a 5-decade-long debacle. When is this going to end? America has become a police state. With only 5% of the world's population, we have 25% of the world's incarcerated. America is the jailer of the whole world. Mexico on our southern border is now controlled by powerful drug cartels, and as a result, tens of millions of illegals have crossed our borders to live illegally in the United States. I am Joseph Magellan, son of the most prolific serial murderer in American history. He was never arrested. My father kidnapped, raped, and murdered more men, women, and children than anyone in U.S. history. He stole $1 billion, and with this money, he bribed more government officials than anyone before him. He and his fellows falsely convicted countless witnesses to these crimes of sex offenses, and they mercilessly murdered the rest. These murders continue unabated today. I am an eyewitness to countless crimes. The United States has the highest per capita incarceration rates in the world. We also boast the highest recidivism rates in the world. The prison population in America has increased 700% since 1971, when President Richard Nixon declared the now infamous war on drugs. The Sentencing Reform Act of 1984 also established strict sentencing guidelines according to the types of crimes committed. According to the Federal Bureau of Prisons, those convicted of drug offenses represent the largest share of the prison population. Not only does the United States have the largest share of the prison population in the world, we also have the highest repeat offender rates in the world. Prison in the United States is a revolving door, and no one gets out alive. 76.6% or 77% of state prisoners end up back in prison within 5 years. That's more than 3/4. The highest reoffender rates in the United States are in California, and the lowest reoffender rates in the United States are in Arizona. What is Arizona doing differently than other states? Arizona Sheriff Joe Arpaio was for 25 years touted as America's toughest sheriff, not the least of which for housing his convicts outside in a tent city composed of old army tents exposed to the elements. Temperatures in the summer could reach 115 or 120 degrees. In winter, the temperatures reached nearly freezing in the dry desert evenings. California prisons, on the other hand, are also no cakewalk and reached a crisis of overcrowding at 300% of their designed capacity. It was so bad that 27,500 prisoners were released in the largest act of mass forgiveness in United States history. On December 31st, 2007, the Legal Arizona Workers Act passed, prohibiting Arizona businesses from knowingly or intentionally hiring an unauthorized alien. The county attorney can bring a suit to suspend or revoke the business license of any business caught employing illegal aliens. Only 4 states, Alabama, Mississippi, Arizona, and South Carolina, adopted the E-Verify, a form of the E-Verify law. E-Verify is a free service provided by the Social Security Administration that prevents illegal aliens from using others' identity documents by matching names and photographs of citizens. Identity theft is the fastest growing crime in the United States. This is a no-brainer. California, on January 1st, 2016, passed California Assembly Bill 622, which prohibits employers from checking the legality status of any current employee. This is in direct violation of the federal law. The third piece of this puzzle is the Arizona Safe Neighborhoods Act, passed on April 23, 2010, which requires state and local law enforcement to verify the immigration status of suspects detained during criminal investigations. Federal law requires aliens older than 18 to carry valid identification at all times. Failure to do so is a federal misdemeanor crime. Passage of this law spurred protests and legal challenges over constitutionality with civil rights laws, and these were filed even by the Justice Department of the United States. On June 2012, the Supreme Court upheld provisions requiring immigration status checks by police officers. In California, it is illegal for police officers to question criminal suspects about their immigration status or to assist federal immigration authorities. 27.2% of Californians are foreign-born nationals. 25% of that 27%, or 1 in 4 Californians, are illegal aliens. The fourth and final piece of this prison puzzle is jobs. Arizona makes material efforts to assist previously incarcerated felons to find gainful employment after their incarceration. It has been statistically proven that a convict with a job is much less likely to reoffend even if the new job held is below what they had before incarceration, since everyone after an incarceration, you pretty much have to restart at the bottom. And people understand this. In California, they passed the Fair Chance Act, or also known as Ban the Box. This new law begins January 1st, 2018, and it addresses the small box on every employment form where the applicant checks yes if they have a criminal history. This law makes it illegal for employers to perform background checks on prospective hires until after a conditional offer is made. The Fair Chance Act in California is the strongest pro-convict law on the books in the nation. Is this law merely virtue signaling, or will this law lower the astronomical reoffender rates in the failed California prison system? Because California currently maintains the highest repeat offender rates in the United States. Now for the good news. Arguably the best prison system in the world with the lowest incarceration rates and the lowest reoffender rates in the world is Norway. What is Norway doing differently than the U.S. prison system? At Halden Prison, considered luxurious by U.S. standards, there is no razor wire, no electrical fences, no towers with snipers, and no death penalty, only a maximum 21-year sentence. Yet no prisoner has yet attempted to escape from Halden Prison. The focus there is not punishment, but rehabilitation. Each of these inmates will eventually re-enter society and become someone's neighbor. Perhaps most importantly, before release from prison, every inmate is provided with housing and a job to return to. U.S. felons, on the contrary, are excluded from eligibility in welfare, food stamps, public housing, and student loans, and are 11 times more likely to be homeless than the general population. What is the secret ingredient to low recidivism rates? What does the prison utopia of Norway have in common with Arizona, the toughest prison system in the United States? Jobs. Although 50% of undocumented immigrants crossing our southern border cross into Arizona, only 4.9%, less than 5% of Arizona's total population consists of undocumented immigrants, while fully 25% of the United States undocumented immigrants call California their home. While large numbers of undocumented aliens may cross the border in Arizona, most don't stay, but migrate to other states. This directly translates to more available jobs for released prisoners. It's math. Undocumented aliens take the jobs that otherwise would go to released prisoners. A convicted felon cannot successfully compete with an undocumented immigrant. An undocumented immigrant is by definition undocumented. He or she has no legal documents to work. Therefore, they use your documents or my documents. This is called identity theft. Their record is always clean. No one knows if they were convicted of crimes in their country. There are no documents. And if they are convicted of crimes in the United States, they simply switch identities and use a new set of clean documents. There is a direct relationship between high undocumented immigrant populations and high recidivism rates, because returning prisoners can't get jobs. California has passed the strongest pro-felon jobs bill in the United States with Ban the Box. Even so, California's recidivism rate is 76%, which is double the 38% recidivism rate of Arizona and nearly 400% higher than Norway's rate of 21%. The secret ingredient is jobs. Returning prisoners with a job are much less likely to reoffend. It's time to end the war on drugs and repeal mandatory sentencing. America has sacrificed 5 generations of men. 93% of inmates are men, and actively created the most powerful criminal organizations in the history of planet Earth, known as the Mexican drug cartels. Stop! It's not working. America has the highest incarceration rates in the world and extremely high reoffender recidivism rates. The secret ingredient is jobs. Arizona, the toughest prison system in the world, is very different from the Norwegian prison utopia, but released inmates in both places get jobs. California boasts the highest repeat offender rates in the United States, but they passed a very strong pro-inmate jobs bill while doing absolutely everything possible to ensure that those released inmates never, ever, ever find honest work in California again. Every released inmate must be provided housing and a guaranteed job that they are required to report to within 72 hours of release. Entire sectors of our economy must be dedicated by law exclusively to the employment of released inmates. All public works jobs should be exclusively dedicated to the employment of released and current inmates. Roads, bridges, dams, national and state parks, USA Job Corps. A good example of this is the French Foreign Legion. Since 1831, they have successfully used released prisoners for nearly 200 years. Diversity. The real solution is diversity. This is a much misused term in the current age. Under the Constitution, each state is sovereign and tasked with management of its own affairs. The power of the federal government is strictly limited and spelled out in the Constitution. The different approaches of Arizona, very successful, and California, extremely unsuccessful, are good examples of diversity. All power centralized at the top, with the federal government claiming supremacy over all affairs, is the nightmare that the Constitution was specifically written to prevent. Does this prison system represent the will of the people? We can do a lot better. I'm Joseph Magellan, son of the most prolific serial killer in U.S. history. He was never arrested. They are still kidnapping, raping, and murdering, even today. Rome is burning, and I'm waiting for justice for the victims of these crimes and the return of my stolen inheritance. Thanks for tuning in. You can get the full story by purchasing my books worldwide on Amazon in both Kindle and paperback versions. The link is in the description. Please subscribe, squeeze the like button, and leave a thoughtful comment.